and welcome to a quick down and dirty video on Mise and how to make a recipe. It's good for you to see me again. I know it's been a while since I have been in a video, but let's talk about what Mise en place is. Mise en place means literally everything in its place, and what that means when you're getting ready to cook is to have everything you need to prepare a recipe ready to go. That is all of your ingredients cut, measured, your cooking utensils out and ready to go. Anything and everything you need to successfully complete a dish, including a plate to finish it, needs to be out and ready to go. Because the last thing you want to do is to be in the middle of cooking and go, oh my gosh, I need to go measure this real quick, and you have to stop what you're doing. That's how we burn things, that's how we lose quality. So it's important that we have everything ready and fully Mised before we move on. So I'm going to show you real quick my mise en place. I'm going to pause the video. Okay, so here's my mise en place. I've got everything out that I need in order to fully execute my dish. I am just going to make a quick bowl of ramen. I'm going to use this packet of ramen and I'm going to doctor it up. I've got my stock ready. I've got my celery, my carrots. I cut some Anaheim peppers. I got some onion. I'm going to use whole garlic cloves, so I didn't have to cut those in any way. I have soy sauce ready to go and oyster sauce, so that's what they are, oyster and soy. And I'm going to use a little fish sauce today. But the reason I didn't put that in a ramekin or pre-measure it is because I literally need like 2 to 3 dashes, and I'm not really going to be able to get that back out of my ramekin, so I didn't measure that today. But when we're talking about mise en placing, we're talking about getting everything we need in order to prepare that recipe. So I have to get my measuring cups out, my measuring spoons, I had to have a cutting board, I had to have a chef knife, and I needed something to cook with, and I'm going to cook with my chopsticks here. I'm also going to eat with chopsticks. I have a pan to cook it in, and I have my bowl to consume it in, okay? So anything and everything I need for that recipe, I have to have ready to go before I begin my cooking process. Because once I start the cooking process, I shouldn't have to stop for anything. I should just be able to cook. That's how we control our quality, and that's how we ensure efficiency, okay? Mise en place makes you more efficient when you're cooking. It may not seem like it because you got to do a lot of prep beforehand, but trust me, it helps. All right, so let's talk about what you're prepping. So I'm going to put down my camera real quick and I'm going to show you a recipe. All right, so this is a different recipe. This is not the recipe I'm using, by the way. When we look at recipes, a couple things you need to make sure you're aware of and need to understand. Okay, so this is the format I use for all my recipes in my courses. They look just like this. So they've got the number of portions up here, usually the portion size. So this one didn't have a portion size because it's for my students, so they could figure out how much or how little they wanted their portion to be. But usually there's a portion size there. So in a restaurant, if we're talking about a standardized recipe, in a restaurant, it's important that we have not only a number of portions, but a portion size, because that's going to tell us exactly how much everyone gets. So for instance, when I run Hunter West Cafe, they all have exact portion sizes. Like a soup, they get 6 ounces of soup. So it would say 6-ounce portions, and it would say that this recipe makes 40 6-ounce portions. This way I know when I'm making this recipe, I know how many people I can feed with this one recipe. And if something's going wrong and I'm not able to feed that many people, then I need to look out and see what's going on with that recipe and why it's not feeding that many people. But when we do that portion size and that number of portions, it helps us control our food costs, and it helps us with portion control, and it makes sure that every person has the same amount of food as the next person. You don't want to go out to dinner and get a bowl of pasta and you get a small portion and your friend has the same thing, but they have 2 times more than you do. Everyone should get the same amount. So it should be consistent. This is I'm going to pull this up a little bit more so you can see a little bit. So here's our ingredients on the left, and on the right are our measurements. So they are again in logical measurements. When something says divided like this, it means you're going to split that 2 tablespoons in half and put 1 tablespoon in a different thing and another tablespoon in another. Okay? All right, so let's talk about mise en place and how do you know what to mise en place? So most people think mise en placing is just measuring all of these ingredients here. It's more than that. So on your recipe, as you can see, here's just the stuff for the sauce. Chicken, it says chicken breast cut into thin strips. Part of the mise en place is getting that chicken cut into thin strips. Down at the bottom, bell pepper, julienne. It involves julienning that bell pepper, julienning the white onion, mincing the garlic. Any prep that's listed up here is counted as mise en place. When I am writing a recipe, I should never down here tell you to cut something because it should already be done up here. Okay? Unless it's like, now that the chicken's roasted, you're going to, break it down or cut it. That's different. But I should never have prep listed in the procedure. All my prep should be listed in my ingredient list. That tells you how to prep it, how to get it ready for execution. Because that's what this is all about. This is about executing that recipe as quickly and as efficiently as possible. If you mise en place fully correctly and you follow the directions, the time up here of 15 to 20 minutes should be accurate. Of course, if you take a little longer to prep your ingredients, it could take you a lot longer than that. Just depends on how fast you are. The more you prep, the more you mise en place, the faster you're going to become, and the more you're going to realize that this actually is saving you time in the long run. A lot of people think it takes longer to mise en place, but it doesn't. It actually saves you time in the end, I promise you. It also makes you a cleaner chef. It makes you more efficient, and it just saves so much time, I promise. Okay? I promise. So up here, mise en place. When we're reading recipes, the first thing you should do when you get a recipe, read it start to finish. Okay? Start to finish. Read the whole thing. Before you do anything, you don't mise en place, you don't do anything until you've read that recipe. Once you've read it once, read it again for understanding. Because the first time you read it, you're going to pick out little things, but you're not going to really truly understand everything on the recipe. So read it twice before you ever do anything. And then after that, you're going to be like, okay, so I'm going to go ahead. So I understand that this is a marinade for my chicken, and then I am going to end up having to marinate my chicken. Here, it's a 10-minute marinade, so it's not a long marinade on the table, and it's on the tabletop. Super quick and easy. So while that's marinating, I can be stir frying everything else. So easy peasy, right? So make sure you read your recipes, make sure you understand before you begin anything. It also helps you prevent mistakes while you're cooking. Last thing you want to do is be like, oh, okay, I'm supposed to start cooking this chicken and then add the marinade, right? And go, oops, I'm not supposed to do that. Make sure you know what order to do things so that you know what's coming next. Don't wait to read your recipe until you're executing a recipe, please, because that's how we screw things up, okay? I promise you, do not do that. It will not go well. It will not end well, all right? So that's how you mise en place. That's how you properly read a recipe. We don't just pay attention to this, because most people only pay attention to this, especially when they're first prepping. Oh, I gotta go get this recipe prep real quick. The only thing that matters is this. No, you gotta read the whole thing, because you kind of really need to understand the recipe in its entirety before you can mise en place and execute it. So read the whole thing and understand it. So as you can see, like this says for the marinade. All that's for the marinade. This is just the chicken. This is just the stir fry. So everything is kind of divided up on this recipe, so make sure you know. This up here even tells you the temperature. We're cooking this at medium high to a high heat. It already tells you all the temperature that you're going to be using up top. It tells you down in the recipe itself what kind of cooking techniques you're going to be using. So we are going to be using a saute method. Okay, we're also using the marinating method when we're marinating our chicken. But overall, this whole thing is just going to be saute, okay? Or if you had a wok, it would be wok cooking. If you did this in a wok, you could do wok cooking for this recipe, okay? So I hope that helps. And now we're going to get into how to execute this recipe. When it comes to mise en place, how do you know what tools and equipment you are going to need for your recipe? When I filmed earlier, I neglected to highlight that aspect because I told you that part of Mise en Place is getting all of the things you need to execute that recipe ready to go, and I showed you what I had, but how do you know what you need? Because not everyone knows instinctively what you need to execute a dish. So I'm going to show you what I do and how I know. First off, over here I can see that I'm going to need a 1 cup measure. It's liquid, so I need a liquid measuring cup. I'm going to need a 1/2 cup dry measuring cup. There's a teaspoon here. Are there any other teaspoons? Nope. I'm going to need at least 1 tablespoon measuring, maybe 2 because it's honey and molasses, and there's also dry stuff. So maybe I should get a couple tablespoon measuring. I need another, either I can just use the same liquid measuring cup. So I need at least a 1 cup liquid measuring cup. Down here, it says I'm going to need chicken cut into strips. So this tells me I'm going to need a yellow cutting board, because that's what color you have to cut chicken on. I'm going to need a cutting mat to prevent my board from slipping. I am going to need a chef knife to cut that chicken, and I'm going to need a bowl to put my chicken into, and I may even want a trash bowl to put any scraps that I may have. As I'm cutting, I can trim the chicken as well, so I may want that. Down here, I'm going to need something to put a ramekin. So not only do I need a measuring, so for all of these, not only do I need a measuring device, I need something to put all of this into. So if I'm using the same liquid measuring cup, I'm going to need a bowl to put that soy sauce into. Or I'm going to need to use 2 different liquid measuring cups. You see what I'm saying? So I can't use the same liquid measuring cup if I haven't put that somewhere. So I either need to have somewhere to put that, or I need to use 2 different liquid measuring cups. I need to have ramekins to put all of my measurements in. So I need ramekins for this one as well. And I'm going to need 2 for this one. And then 1, 2, 3, 4 for this one. Okay. Down here it says I need a 1/2 bell pepper, 1/2 an onion, and garlic cloves. These are all involve cutting. So I can use a white or green cutting board. Again, I need a cutting mat, chef knife. I'm going to need bowls for all of these. So 3 bowls, 1 for each prep, and 1 trash bowl. And this is a trash bowl. 1 bowl for that, 1 bowl for that. Okay? So that's just a few things that I'm going to need right off the hand. And now these are probably small, so I don't need a big bowl. I just need like little bowls. Okay, down here, let's get into the nitty gritty of the procedure. When we're here, right here, automatically whisk. It says whisk together, so I know I'm going to need a whisk. Whisk all the marinade and sauce ingredients minus the water. Water's for later. So whisk all of these things together except for this. I'm whisking them all. So I need a bowl for that. Okay, so maybe I got a bowl for this one. I can just use that same bowl. Put your chicken in a 3rd pan. So we need a 3rd pan. So if you don't know what a 3rd pan is, we call them 3rd pans because it takes 3 of them to complete 1 full hotel pan. When we have number pans, we take a hotel pan, and however many pans fits in that hotel pan is what it's called. So we have 9 pans, 3rd pans, 6 pans, half pans, and so on and so forth. So you need a 3rd pan. So we need a 3rd. I'm going to pour half of it in and the sauce over our chicken. Mix. So let's get some tongs to mix. So tongs. Coat with plastic wrap. So we're going to cover with plastic wrap. Cover with plastic wrap. Label it with your name, date, and allow it to rest. So we need a Sharpie. So that's part of your uniform usually. So for my class, it's part of their uniform. So a Sharpie. Allow to sit for 10 minutes. Fill a saucepan. So a saucepan a little over 2/3 of the full. Probably it says large, so they need a large saucepan here. While water is boiled, heat large saute pan. So we need a large saute pan. When it's hot, add that tablespoon of oil, add bell peppers, garlic saute. Okay, so we need something to move all these around with. So we can use a rubber spat, because as long as it's a high heat rubber spatula, or a wooden spoon. Okay, depends on your cooking vessel. If it's non-stick, you don't want to have any metal. Add the oil, remove chicken, just use the same tongs. Get clean tongs actually, because that's for raw chicken. Tongs for clean chicken. Not clean chicken, I mean cooked chicken. Okay, spread around the pan. Flip this over. Allow the chicken to cook until it's brown. Blah, blah. Remove from the pan. Oh, wait, no. So this one, we can use the same chicken, the same tongs. So, sorry. This is where we're going to need clean tongs for our chicken. Clean tongs so we don't cross-contaminate. Now we're going to add our veg, add noodles to the water. Okay, that's taking place in our large saucepan. Probably going to want some tongs for that, so we can. We either want tongs for that so we can move them around in the pan so they can break apart and they don't stick, or we're going to want to get them out of the water, or we're going to need, if you want to strain them, then you need something to strain them with. Okay, remove noodles from water using a spider. So a spider is it's hard to explain, but it's a handle and it's got like a little strainer at the other end, and they're like flat, almost like flat spoons, and they fit inside your pan. So you need a spider to remove it with. Add the water, so we're still using that same whisk from earlier. Continue to cook until it coats the back of a spoon. So you're going to want a spoon to test to see if it coats the back of a spoon. Remove the noodles, add them straight in the sauce along with the chicken, veg, and toss and serve. And we're going to want a plate and chopsticks or a fork. Okay, so that's how I go about it. So as I'm looking through all this, I can see I need a lot. I need a lot of stuff. I'm going to need at least one bowl here, 6 ramekins, a bowl, a trash bowl, 3, 4, 5. Say 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 bowls at least. 6 ramekins, a whisk, a third pan, plastic wrap, a large saucepan, large saute pan, pair of tongs, a Sharpie, rubber spatula or wooden spoon. I need another pair of tongs, because this is my clean tongs. Another pair of tongs for our noodles. We need the same whisk from earlier, a spoon, a spider, a plate, and chopsticks or a fork. So that's how I go about knowing what I need to gather tools and equipment wise for my recipes. And yes, I do that for all recipes, especially if I am the one preparing that recipe. I go through it start to finish, find all the things I need, and I gather it all. Because the last thing I want to do is be in the middle of cooking something and go, oh my gosh, I need to go run across the kitchen and go get my tongs or find my tongs or whatever the case may be, because that, especially with something like stir fry, which is an incredibly fast process, I could burn something. So it's incredibly important we have everything at hand and at the ready when we're preparing our recipes. So I hope this helps you figure out how to determine what tools and equipment you need to have out for Mise en Place, because Mise en Place is not just food, it's tools and equipment as well.